into the first topic here. Um, should the Washington football team trade for Trey Lance? So why are we asking this? Basically, there was a report that the Washington football team is smitten, or in other words, they love Trey Lance. And then there was a report the next day saying that they might unload their picks for Trey Lance. Now, this could just be speculation, but maybe smoke and mirrors. But it's still interesting because they have a hole at quarterback. They have Tyler Heineke, Ryan Fitzpatrick, but besides that, nothing promising at all. Vish, should the Washington football team trade up for Trey Lance? They're at pick 19 right now.
I'm going to say no. And it's nothing against Trey Lance. It's just the price that they have to give up to go get Trey Lance. So I think we're all safely under the assumption that Trey Lance is going in the top 10, right?
Yes.
Whether it's 3 to the 49ers. So we know, I think we're all, so let's just go by assumptions here. We're assuming Trevor Lawrence goes 1. We're assuming Zach Wilson goes 2. And we're assuming one of Mac Jones, Justin Fields, and Trey Lance goes 3. For the sake of this exercise, let us say that Justin Fields or Mac Jones goes 3 and Trey Lance is still left on the board. So from there, that's where we're asking this question, right? And so I'm assuming they would have to trade up somewhere to, I would say 4 to Atlanta would be a spot. I don't think Cincinnati would trade down. I don't think Miami would trade down. I think Detroit could possibly be a spot. Carolina at 8 could possibly be a spot. Denver at 9 is a big maybe, though if Trey Lance is on the board, maybe they take him. So those would be kind of the teams that we were looking at. And I'm assuming it's going to cost something around 2 firsts and a pick swap, or one first, 1 second, swap of their first round picks, obviously in 2021 and going like that. And so for that reason, I just think the price is too much. I think that they already have this really great young roster. I don't know if this is the year that they need to go get a young quarterback to grow with this team. I think they need a veteran quarterback. Ideally, for me, that would have been Andy Dalton and not Fitzmagic, who turns the football over too much for my liking, especially with the style of quarterback they need. For those reasons, I'm going to say no.
Interesting. Okay, so I thought they were picking higher than 19th. I thought they were in like the 15 to 16 range. So when I first heard this, I'm like, okay. Like they're in the middle of the draft. They could trade up to maybe like 7 or 8, like with the Panthers or the Lions, and then the Niners traded up to 3. So like that's guaranteeing 3 quarterbacks are gone right there. And then basically there's the choice of probably Lance will be available, and then either Jones or Fields. But here's the thing, though. They have to do something at quarterback besides Fitzpatrick. And bringing in a young guy is probably going to happen sooner than later. I don't think Tyler Heineke's the answer, although he did look good in 1 game. It's only 1 game, though.
Taylor.
And we know it was what?
Taylor Heineke.
Taylor Heineke, yeah, sorry. Fitzmagic, he's a bridge quarterback. I mean, that's really all he is. So they have to make some move to get a young guy. And if they like Lance and they want him to sit, go up and get him then. Like if this is the guy they think that can take him to the promised land, this would allow them to be able to pay all these defensive guys that are about to get expensive. Allen, Payne, when Young comes up, probably him too. Guys in their secondary. When McLaurin, his contract expires. So if they did trade up, they definitely would be hindered by the fact that they don't have a couple of firsts, at least, right? Because they're going to have to trade 2 additional firsts, and if not 1 additional first, and then a couple seconds and thirds and that stuff. So I think they might have to trade up. I don't know if they should trade up to 4, though. That's where I'm kind of stuck. Like if they traded up all the way to 4, it would probably be 2 firsts and then additional stuff. But if, say, at 7, the Lions are there and Trey Lance is available, that's when I think they would be more willing to trade up and maybe not have to give up as much as going all the way to 4.
Is it my connection that's off, or is that Blake?
Can you hear me good or no? Okay. So I think it's you, Vish. Are you back? You can hear me? Okay, so looks like Vish's connection is probably not working well right now, but drop a comment. What do you guys think they should do? Do you think they should trade up for Trey Lance or not? I'm saying,
There we go.
All right, you're back. Okay. So yeah, basically I was kind of saying like I think if he slid to 7th or 8th and the price wasn't as much, like maybe they do just a first and a second or something, and they're not trading all the way up to 4, it would be more plausible, especially given that yeah, their rosters win now, but if they had a cheap quarterback that was playing well and had a year to develop, then their roster would be kind of set. And they need some explosiveness. Like it's pretty hard to watch them throw dump off routes to JD McKissick and Logan Thomas.
Well, I think that changes with Fitzmagic anyway. I mean, Fitzmagic has never been synonymous with having the strongest arm, but man, he throws the ball down the field, and man, he's quite the gambler. So I guess from Riverboat Ron's standpoint, that makes sense. And then, okay, like Ron Rivera won with Cam Newton, right, who I think is a more special talent, at least when he came out, than Trey Lance for sure. Yeah. But that doesn't mean Trey Lance isn't a special talent, because he does have a lot of talent. And so his running compared with when you add the fact that he has a super strong arm and maybe he develops, I agree with all those things. For me, it's just the fact that I think Washington's a team that's capable of winning in the next 2 years. And for me, Trey Lance is such a question mark on what he can be, what he will be, what he won't be. I just think that giving up that much and going and getting him if you're Washington is just a little risky. I think it could be a great move, but then I just think the way their team is right now, it's a really, really ballsy move, because that's the kind of move that if they make it, Trey Lance better be the guy, because they basically have kind of this 1 to 3 year window on his rookie contract, and then because they're gonna have to then restructure this team as people get paid and all of that. It'll be interesting. Man, I'm kind of thinking like maybe they should do it now that I'm kind of thinking about it more and talking about it. I keep going back and forth on this.
It's tough, right? Because like that defense is loaded. Like they are like if they had a really good inside linebacker, like I think that defense would be like top 3, because that D line is insanely good. They have,
in my opinion, it's already top 3.
Their defense?
Yes, because I think Pittsburgh is falling off. So I think it's them. It's them. I would say the Denver Broncos could be nearing that conversation this year. I think the Rams are not going to be top 3 this year just because of all the people they've lost and losing Brandon Staley. And then I think the Chargers are the other defense that I look at and say, with Brandon Staley, if Derwin's healthy, they could have a chance. And the Niners. But I think they're right there smack dab in the top 3 conversation.
Yeah, but that's a good point. And if they do trade for Trey Lance and say he sits his first year, maybe part of his second year, that's 3 years they'll have him relatively cheap. And it basically is like them saying, all right, like we've developed him as much as we want. Like we're ready to put him in. We've had Fitzmagic here, holding on the fort like he always seems to do. Like that would be an interesting idea. Now they would have to trade a lot, right? Like 2 first minimum. And this move is basically like, you either look like geniuses or a bunch of people get fired. It would be incredibly it'd be interesting to say the least if they did trade up that much.
So Jamal brings up a really good point, and I actually think Jimmy G to the Washington Redskins, or excuse me, the Washington football team, my bad. It's so natural to say the Washington, what their former name was, but the Washington football team, excuse me. I actually think Jimmy G to the Washington football team would be a decent fit, barring that you know that he's at least healthy for now, just because he's a legitimate starting quarterback, and I think he gives you less variance than Ryan Fitzpatrick in terms of his performance. And right now, the way I look at the Washington football team, is that they have this defense that can really dominate and take over games. They just got Curtis Samuel. They have Terry McLaurin. I really like Gibson. I really like J.D. McKissick like a decent amount. So I don't think they need a quarterback to do much. They just need a quarterback who's going to play conservative. And I mean, Jimmy G does turn over the football, but maybe he doesn't turn it over that much, or can make just right, and can just make a couple of plays here and there on third down and play consistent. And that's kind of what Jimmy Garoppolo can do. And I think that possibly that would be a reasonable fit. Now with Trey Lance, just again, it Am I gone?
Yeah, you're back now. It just cut out a little bit.
Okay. My bad. If Washington views Trey Lance as a day one starter, then like I think that's an awesome move. But I think if you have to wait a couple years on Trey Lance, like I just don't know where the state of this roster is going to be. Just because with the NFL, you can't plan for 3 years from now because of injuries and other things like that. You have to be a win now kind of team. And I think they have this win now team. Like, okay, they're all really young, but you don't know what will happen 2 years from now. Like the 49ers in 2019, like looked at it, Nick Bosa's so young, Fred Warner's so young, George Kittle's so young. They're all going to be back. Now look at where they are compared to that. And so for that reason, I just think you can't wait 1 year on Trey Lance if you think you have to wait a year. You can't wait 1.5 years on Trey Lance just because this could be the year. Like Washington, if things go right, they get a couple of lucky bounces, things like that. They could be in the Super Bowl because their defense is capable of taking them there. So for that reason, that's where I think I have that's where my reservations are kind of really starting to pile up because it's really just that.
Interesting. Yeah. And I think especially for defenses, it's harder to keep an elite defense around than it is offense, because offense, it's mainly down to the quarterback, but defense, it's like you have to have an above average dude at every position plus like 1 to 2 superstars. Like all the elite defenses don't stay together for that long because it's really hard to do. It really is. And that could be the case with Washington.
Right. I mean, that's the thing, right? That's the big thing. Like Washington, it's not just the star power with young Allen Payne and Sweat. It's the Matt Ioannidis's. I mean, they had Ryan Kerrigan last year. Now he's gone. He was a tad older, but it's people like that, like William Jackson now is a huge addition to their defense. I think Landon Collins might come back. So we'll see where Landon Collins is, but he's a physical presence. Right. He's a physical presence. So when you have all of these features and all of these big time players to your defense, it's like you think you can keep this defense for the next 10 years or whatever, but a lot of teams think that. And then, right, things happen, especially because, again, injuries, stuff like that. You don't wish that on anybody, but those things happen. And that's where I say, like, if you think Trey Lance starting day one, I think that's my final conclusion. If you think Trey Lance is starting day one, go get him. If you think Trey Lance is going to take 1.5 years to play, or at least 1 year to play, I say don't do it.
Interesting. Yeah. I think they'd be fine if they brought him in after 1 year, but any more than that, it's kind of like, you traded up 3 firsts, or you traded up 2 additional firsts to get him, and he can't play for 20 games, like the first 20, 25 games. Like that's kind of an issue. But it's interesting. We'll see what they do. We'll see if they trade up. That was just a report. But we can move